In the beginning, the world was united. One language, one people, one purpose. After the flood, the descendants of Noah spread out across the earth, but their hearts still clung together in pursuit of something greater. They journeyed eastward and found a plain in the land of Shinar. There, in the dust of the earth and under the watch of heaven, they said to one another, "Come, let us build." There were no borders, no tribes, no divisions. Just the boldness of man, ambitious, intelligent, and determined to leave a mark on eternity. But beneath the surface of unity was something far more dangerous than disagreement. It was agreement, without God. They had a shared voice, but no reverence. A common goal, but no covenant. In a world newly washed by judgment, man was already preparing to climb again, not in worship, but in pride. Come, let us build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. With those words, something ancient was reborn, the sin of Eden in a new form. This time, there was no serpent, no garden, just brick and fire and the will of man. It was more than architecture, it was rebellion hardened into brick and mortar. They would not call upon the name of the Lord, they would carve their own legacy into the skyline of creation. Stone by stone, ambition rose. The tower stretched upward, but the hearts of men sank deeper into pride. They believed they could ascend without the blessing of God. They desired glory, but not grace. Power, but not presence. This was not about shelter, it was not about safety, it was about sovereignty. Mankind wanted to be like God, not under him, but beside him, or even above him. The city they built was a fortress of the human spirit, a monument to what they could achieve without heaven's help. They weren't just building a tower, they were building a throne. What began as construction became confrontation, and heaven was watching. Then the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. He did not come because he was unaware, he came to confront what pride had begun. For though the tower was tall in the eyes of men, to the eyes of heaven, it was nothing. God saw the unity of their speech, the power of their agreement, and the direction of their hearts, and he knew what would come next. Nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them, he said. But this was not admiration, it was warning. Because when man walks in unity apart from God, destruction is never far behind. So God acted, not with fire, not with flood, but with confusion. The very thing they depended on, their common language, was shattered. In an instant, their words turned to noise, their voices became strange even to their closest neighbors. They had built one voice against heaven, and now heaven would divide it. It was not wrath, it was restraint. God stopped the tower not because he feared what man could do, but because he loved what man could still become. Confused and disoriented, the builders dropped their tools. They shouted commands that no one could understand. What once united them now separated them, and so the work stopped. They called the place Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth. What was meant to be a monument to man's greatness became a memorial to his limits. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the earth, families, clans, and tongues drifting like leaves in the wind. Nations were born, cultures formed, and history moved forward, no longer as one people, but as many. But even in this scattering, God was not abandoning them, he was setting the stage. From one of these nations he would raise up a man named Abram, and through him, he would speak again, not confusion, but covenant. Not division, but destiny. What man tried to build by pride, God would one day restore by promise. The Tower of Babel is not just a story about the past, it is a mirror held up to every generation. It warns us that unity without humility is dangerous, that progress without submission becomes rebellion, that even the greatest human achievements crumble when they are built without God. Babel shows us that pride builds towers, but only surrender builds altars. Man tried to reach heaven by his own strength, but heaven would one day come down, not in judgment, but in mercy. Centuries later, on the day of Pentecost, the curse of Babel would be reversed, and tongues once confused would now proclaim one name, Jesus. In Jerusalem, the Spirit came down like fire, and where Babel scattered, Pentecost gathered. Where Babel divided, Pentecost united. Not through language, but through the power of the gospel. The story of Babel ends with confusion, but the story of redemption ends with understanding, one Savior, one cross, one name by which we must be saved. God did not destroy the tower because he feared man's success, he destroyed it because he saw where that success was leading, a future without him. He intervened, not out of vengeance, but out of love. Because unchecked pride always leads to ruin, and God's mercy often looks like interruption. We all build towers. Towers of ambition, security, reputation, even religion, reaching for heaven on our own terms. But every tower built without God becomes Babel in the end. The question is not how high we can climb, but who we are trusting as we build. Babel reminds us that the only name worth lifting up is not ours, but His. And the only foundation that will not fall is the one laid by the hands of grace. So we ask, what are we building? And whose name will be remembered when the dust clears? Because only one kingdom will stand forever.